Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming here. One of the most common questions asked about translations, and we have all heard this, is their popularity as compared to other kinds of literature, English fiction, English non-fiction. And I have faced these questions many times over the course of my career. I know translators have and writers have. So it is an absolute pleasure for me to begin the Jaipur Bookmark sessions with one on the translated text. And it is very important for us. Obviously, this is a panel of people who have been deeply involved with translations. And it's a pleasure that we are able to talk translations with all of you. I'm so thankful to Manisha for allowing us to begin Bookmark with translations. So this session is on illuminating translations. And we have with us the winner of the 2025 International Booker Prize, Deepa Bhasthi, who has translated Heart Lamp. And we have Kanishka Gupta, who runs the agency called Writer's Side. He's one of the most important and foremost literary agents in this country. Kanishka is also one of the few people who has worked with me on translations very closely for about 4 years now. So welcome Deepa, Kanishka. We are going to talk all things translations, the good things as well as the tricky bits. So we are going to start with Deepa. Okay, here we go. This is a text-related question. And I know you've said this before, but is there an argument that can be made which says that translation needs to read in such a way that it has to appeal to a global reader? Is that important to you, that a translation should read in a way that the global reader can understand it? And is it important that a vernacular language book needs to be validated globally for it to be considered an authentic book?
Short answer, no and no. The longer answer being, I don't know who decides this global standard for what is English or how English should read or how we should speak, because forget outside of Indian borders, even within India, we all don't speak English the same way. The way English is spoken in Delhi is very different from how it's spoken in Bangalore or even within Karnataka, coming down from the country to the state. How it's spoken in Bangalore is very different from how I would speak it in Madikeri, in Coorg, where I was born and raised. So I'm not sure we know who's deciding all this, but I don't believe in sticking with that artificial standard of what is proper English. I've heard this so often from editors everywhere that the English that I have translated into is not proper English, and I've never been able to. I don't want to understand if at all because there is no such thing as a proper English. And when we talk about translation, the idea is that you are allowing yourself, you're accessing a text which is so different from the text that the kind of writing that you're familiar with. So you have, as a reader, I think we have to be challenged. We have to be challenged to know that this comes from a different culture. So obviously there'll be aspects of that text which might not be immediately easy to understand, and that's fine. I mean, that's how we grow as readers, that's how we grow as people. If everything was flattened and written in a particular kind of English, if I made chapati as flat bread, think the hundreds of examples like that, then what is why would someone want to reach for a book from a different culture? You're picking up a book from another culture from across the world because you want to be challenged and you want to learn something about that language or that person or that culture or whatever. So, and to flatten it into some sort of standard English is just wrong.
Which also brings me to this point that with Heart Lamp at least, Deepa was very clear that she didn't want footnotes. She said no footnotes. So we are going to keep the words as they are. And she would like the reader to go into the nuance of it and make the effort to understand what those words mean. And in this case, I've had very first-hand experience of how she approaches a translation, what her ideology is. So
sorry, if I can just add. So this comes from this. So years and years ago, when I first read, I think it was Purple Hibiscus, Chimamanda Adichie's. So there was this one word which I think it was that book, or the other, Orange Sun something, yellow, sorry, the other one, half of a yellow sun, sorry. Right. She uses the word jollof rice a lot, and nowhere there is a mention of what jollof rice was. And I think this was way before the internet was on our phones and at the end of our fingertips. So it didn't matter to me. I knew that this was some sort of food, some sort of dish, and it was only years and years later, I think when I was in London or somewhere, that I actually had jollof rice and realized it's something like a biryani. Not exactly, I'm not trying to compare the two, but it's some sort of similar thing, and it was fine. It was fine not to know, and to know to have that knowledge that this is from that culture. I didn't need to know. It didn't take away from my experience of reading those books. Just one. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, Kanishka, you've done how many books? 1,300, 1,400, 1,800 books.
No, but yeah, quite a few.
Quite a few. Many of them have been translations. Kanishka has been looking at translations, I think, quite early on in
Around
the
like
general world.
2016, 17 onwards, and now I represent close to like 110 or 15 translators. So yeah, it's a massive list. Yeah.
And you've done all kinds.
But despite the book, our publishers are cutting down on their translations list. So yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me, but the question for you as an agent is, so many different kinds of books. Do you find agenting for translations, now that you brought up the publisher issue also, do you think agenting for translations and translators is different?
Yeah, it used to be very challenging initially because translators were always open to working with an agent, but it was the author, or in case the author was not around, the copyright holders who were very reluctant to like sign with an agent. They did not have much of an idea about English language publishing. So sometimes I signed up a translator, and the author or the copyright holder wanted to sign directly with the publisher, which used to create a lot of complications. But I think now there is a great awareness about the existence of agents. Agents are I think they're controlling like 60 to 70% of the market in India too, and it was maybe like less than 5% before that. I've seen that there's a lot of emphasis on languages from which books have not been translated into English. Like when I was starting out, there were lots of translations from Bangla, Tamil, Hindi, of course, but now you see translations from Kannada, you see translations from Odia, you see translations from Kashmiri. I mean, even dialects. Like I represent 2 novellas which have been translated from Angika, which is a dialect, and Maithili. So it's now, I think there's a greater awareness after these 2 books amongst writers in vernacular languages that it's in their interest to sign up with an agent. In fact, Heartlamp would have never been published in the UK or in India by Penguin had Banu not taken my advice of not giving most of the stories from Heartlamp to another translator who was going to sell it to Sahitya Academy. And I'm not criticizing Sahitya Academy, but there's a huge difference in how Penguin promotes a book and distributes a book, and a Sahitya Academy does. So there's a lot of awareness now. So but I frankly I feel that these Booker wins are not enough, because they end up.
Let's talk about that.
Okay,
Let's
we'll
talk
talk
about
about
this.
that.
Yeah. No, I want you to continue on this now, because we've talked about this many times, Kanishka, and we have all talked about what the Booker means for our, the economics of it. How has that changed? And I wanted to come to this later, but let's get into it now. Because as an agent, Kanishka is exposed to just the way that publishers perceive translations, international publishers perceive South Asian literature in translation, and festivals and prize winners. From an agent's point of view, has the economics of it changed? Because as an editor and as a publisher, I'm not entirely convinced that it has changed. It has made leaps and bounds. I'm excited about everything that has happened since 2022, for instance, after Tomb of Sand and Heart Lamp. But I do ask myself how much it has changed and what more we need to do.
No, I mean, it has changed a lot in the sense that now, like, translated fiction is at par with, writing in English, and in fact, if a publisher had a choice to make between a debut novel written by a writer in English and a translation of a debut work, from any Indian language into English, they would go for the latter. Advances are more or less the same. Yes, like after the Booker win for Tomb of Sand, the next Gitanjali Daisy book went for a big advance, which happens with all award-winning books. But I feel that there's a lot of opposition to even the Booker-winning books. I mean, it's not very open. So Tomb of Sand barely got reviewed in the US, and all of you will be surprised to hear that the new Daisy Gitanjali, Our City That Year, did not get a single review in the US. And this is a follow-up to Tomb of Sand. So there is opposition, and see that's why these prizes alone will not change the mindset of readers and publishers. And in the West, I've seen that editors, they respond to a particular text and storyline. They don't look at like the credentials of the author. So after Daisy and Gitanjali won the Booker Prize, I went to Frankfurt. It was my first Frankfurt fair, and I had this like big catalog, because Daisy has been translating for many, many years, but publishers were only interested in one or two books because the subject spoke to them, the theme spoke to them. So that is the difference between publishing in the UK, US. Editors are very opinionated, and that is the way it should be. I mean, I was at Frankfurt this year, and clearly there's a lot of interest in reading new books from South Asia, translations from South Asia, but does that translate into like book deals? It's very, very tough. Yeah. So
I agree. I found that I think the climate of readers, I'm still trying. We're still learning.
There is willingness. They are open to reading, but I mean, I still feel that it's Eurocentric, the whole market there, and obviously all these books from Japan about cats and fantasy. They're there. Yeah.
But I think there is space for the South Asian narrative now more than ever, because our experiences have been, as a result of our historical and political experiences, our experiences are very unique in South Asia. And I think that those narratives are appealing to wider readers. I think that the experience of immigration and geopolitics and all of it, what have you, which is very particular in our experience in India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, these stories, I feel, I found international publishers write to me and say, that's what's interesting to us. The fact that it's very situated in that space is what appeals to us. So that's been great. It's been great to hear as an editor that there are counterparts in the UK or Paris or whatever who write to me and say, but I want this to be a Bangladesh story, and that's what appeals to me. So I'm excited about that. At least we have that. Now, for Deepa has spent a year just in celebrityhood.
Not
and you,
fun.
and you.
No, I'm not saying me. I'm just saying it's not been a year yet.
Not yet.
It's far longer.
About 2 years ago or more, we met at Jaipur Lit Fest, and we spoke first about a collection of stories by a Kannada writer whom I had not heard of. And she said, it is going to be something and you must read it. And then she had won the EnglishPEN for one of the stories, and she sent it to me, and that was the beginning, and here we are, full circle. You have spent quite a bit of time on this collection, and you have had many experiences through the course of writing the book, getting it published in India as well as in the UK with Stefan, and almost a year after the historic win. What has been your most memorable experience related to this book?
So many. I think somewhere I'm yet to process all the wonderful experiences I've had. I mean, of course, it's a once in a lifetime sort of thing. You get to travel to exciting places and meet writers, fellow translators who you've only read their books. All of that is great, but I think what has remained with me is the number of young people who have come up and said, we didn't realize this, we could write in the English that we speak. And that's been very, very, I think, it's been validating, it's been very humbling, because this is the way we talk in English in this country. Obviously, it changes geographically, like I said, Delhi is different, Bangalore is different, and so on. But somehow we have this idea that we speak differently, and then we end up, if we were to write in English, or if we were to translate into English, it again changes its tenor, it changes its texture, changes the way it looks and feels and reads like. But to have these young, especially students who are not even translators or not literature students, not young people, come and say, we didn't realize this is how we could and that this could work, that something like this could work. I think that's been one of the most humbling experiences I've had. And somewhere, because when I was translating this, I had no clue what I was doing. I'm not sure I have a clue what I'm doing now, but to have experimented like this and realized that it could potentially work, and it could potentially be read and understood and enjoyed and loved or hated, whatever. Any reaction is great. It might not work for people, and that's absolutely fine, because no book has to be loved by everyone. This ownership of the English that we have, to see English very much as also an Indian language and not something that is alien and foreign, and all the other words that political projects want to throw at us. So that's been a very very interesting memory.
Is there any particular moment of triumph? Also for you, moment of absolute pure triumph.
So a lot of people did not know that I was involved with, like the first booker for an Indian language, Tomb of Sand. So it was really like good to. I think a lot of people woke up to the fact that I represent two Booker winners, so that was good to know. And but like I don't think I had like time to let this feeling of triumph sink in, because it was a lot of hard work, and we were like touring throughout, working throughout. I was like managing all their schedules, and I mean, I don't think in the moment of triumph was the prize ceremony only, and them holding the trophies and the memorable speeches. So I don't know. I mean,
and then you're just swept away by
still
everything.
Like
it's
working
still
10 or 12 hours a day just on this, and I have a huge list of writers. But I was focusing on Deepa and Banu, and there's a difference between the first booker and the second booker in that I only represented Daisy. Daisy does not spend too much time in India. I mean, she came to India 2 times after the booker win during the festival season. But Banu and Deepa live in India. Banu has never been published in English before that, and the first time a compilation of her stories gets published, it wins the Booker Prize. So I had to tell her a lot of things about publishing, how publishing and like media, so and Deepa, while she's published before, I mean this was clearly like really big and overwhelming. So but I had some training and experience.
What next for Deepa Bhasthi?
being back on my farm.
Oh,
I
and
live on a
work-wise
farm.
also.
Work-wise, okay. We have to think about work.
Deepa is thinking of going back home. That's
Yes.
foremost.
Sorry. Yeah, I miss my dogs. No, so I mean, I say this everywhere, that I don't see myself, or nor do I want to be a career translator. So I don't see myself translating book after book after book. So I just pick up projects that speak to me, or I find that they have potential for me to get creative and play with both the languages, both Kannada and English. So my focus remains on my own writing. So hopefully, I'll send you a manuscript at some point.
So I'm trying to get cultural institutions, both government and non-government, and private donors to give grants for translations like they do in the UK, US, and especially in Japan, Korea. Because if you look at the two Booker wins, it started with Pen. Daisy
with grants, yeah.
Daisy would not have got a deal from Tilted Access had she not won the Pen English, because they would not have been in a position to pay her translation fee. And Deepa's translation of Banu would not have been discovered by you, me, and even another stories had she not won the Pen presents. But we have cultural institutions in India who have a lot of funding. So I'm trying to get some sort of a mandate from them and other private donors and philanthropists to incentivize publishers in the UK to take on translated fiction, because this has to happen consistently. Despite these prizes, we are nowhere close to capturing the imagination of the readership in the West. I mean, far away from that. Yeah. So I think that's what I'm working on.
Yeah.
So I think the grants and fellowships or residencies are super important, because I mean, we love talking about how translations especially are a labor of love, but then you can only do so many translations without having some sort of support. Sure, the Booker changes that and you're in a better position, but this doesn't happen for every book, in every language.
The Chennai, I think the Textbook Corporation, Tamil Nadu Textbook Corporation, they have grants. They have grants which they offer to publishers.
They
not
offer
just in English, but foreign languages, to get them to publish good books, from Tamil into those languages. So I mean, this is something that has to be done
on a state level.
State level, government level, national level.
LTI, I think they pay a salary for translators in Korea. I think
What's that?
LTI in Korea. I think they pay a salary for. It's like a job. You get an office, you go to work, and you get paid a salary for translating. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, because also in the UK and the US, the translation fee is based on per word basis, but in India that's not the case. The publisher is going to look at the print run, and that is going to decide the advance. So if it's like a 700-page book, and if the publisher feels that it cannot sell more than 3,000 or 4,000 copies, the translation is only going to get a pittance, which is going to be 50% of the advance paid to both the of the advance paid to both the translator and the author, staggered over so many installments. So it's financially not feasible. We also need to get our modern classics translated into English and published in the UK US. So books like Mustache by S. Harish, O.V. Vijayan's Legends of Khasak has never been published in the UK US. One of India's or the subcontinent's most famous partition novel, Tamas by Bhisham Sahni, did not get published in the UK US until Daisy won the Booker Prize for Tomb of Sand, because she had done a translation of Tamas, and now Penguin Classics has picked it up. So we should not only look at new writing, contemporary writing, but also try and get older works, famed works translated. So I mean, some sort of support is required, because a lot of publishers in the UK, they do have, UK and the US, they have a modern classics list, and they are open to voices from all over the world.
Increasingly so.
Yeah, they are.
Increasingly
and
so.
It's not just Penguin. You have Pushkin has a classics list. There are many publishers who have a classics list, modern classics. Yeah.
Thank you. One last question for Deepa, which is your advice to younger translators today, translating from languages such as Kannada, particularly Kannada, but also other languages in the vernacular. what is the one thing that you would say to them in terms of text, in terms of presentation? What is it that you think they would benefit from?
I think reading as widely from other languages as possible, because in the last few months, I've met several writers, several young translators who are very interested in translating from Kannada or whatever other language, and they read a whole bunch of a whole bunch of Kannada books, or they would read a lot of books translated from Kannada. But I always tell them, read from languages that you have no understanding of, from cultures, because the way people translate, let's say a Russian novel is translated, is very different. The way it is edited, if it were to be published in the US or UK, is different from the way, I don't know, someone like Siegel would publish from East European languages. So I think that helps one. Reading as widely from different languages as possible is the one tip that I would have. It's helped me a lot, because it's helped me understand how certain cultures can be translated. I mean, I know nothing about Eastern European cultures, but to have some sort of insight into how these cultural aspects might be translated also helps when I have to translate from something no one outside of Kannada would know. So I think that helps, instead of just sort of sticking to our own geographical region or our own languages. Reading widely from other languages, I would say.
We are going to finish our personal interaction here, and we will open up to the house. We have some time. We have about 15 minutes, so we can take some questions. Yes. Yes.
Thank you very
Do you want to introduce yourself?
much. Sure. So, my name is Romita, and I'm visiting from Thai, all four of us.
Yes.
Thanks for the tip on the mic. My name is Romita. We're all visiting here from Dubai, and we're writers of different capacities. I basically have a question for you, Deepa, with regard to the sound of translation, because language, like different languages, have the same word. Like, I'll say in Bengali is mishti and sweet in English. It has a completely different sound when you're using it in a sentence. So how do you contend with the nuances of that moving from Kannada into English? Like, how do you address it? You clearly have, but how does it work? I'm just curious.
What's helped me when I translate is listening to the language, and I discovered this entirely by accident. So my husband, we speak Kannada at home, but he doesn't read or write because he studied in a central school. Never mind. So, oops. Oh, was that me? No, okay. So, because after I started translating, he got very interested in Kannada literature himself. But since he couldn't read, and there was no way I was going to read 700-page novels out loud for him, we ended up finding audio books, and we would listen to maybe half a chapter or one chapter or whatever every day. And I realized over time that it was doing something to my understanding of the Kannada language. I can't quite explain how, but I was picking up, and Kannada is a language I speak every day. I was raised in the language, and as it often happens, you take your own mother tongue for granted, especially when you're living in that geographical area. So, but listening to it consciously was sort of it changed my relationship in the most interesting ways, and that I like to think is how sort of I was able to retain some of these sounds and nuances, and retain the musicality of Kannada in the translation. And because I enjoyed the process so much, I continue to listen to at least something or the other in that language every single day. It could be just a song or a short lecture or whatever it is. So just sort of listening to the language I know so well. It made a huge difference to how I picked up some of these nuances that I wanted to retain or to translate.
Do you want to give an example from, say, Heartland? Something that you've been able to pick up in terms of the sound of
Translation as immersion.
I mean, I can't immediately think of an example, but and this is something sort of related. So in Kannada, there is a proverb that goes "Durada betta nunnage." Literal, very loosely translated, it means the distant mountain is smooth. It is the English equivalent would be the grass is greener on the other side. So you never quite know, you know.
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah. It's so, but there are translators who will pick up the English equivalent and say, "Oh, this is far more understandable." But my argument is that I don't want the reader to imagine that we as Kannada speakers or Kannada writers would also use the grass is greener on the other side. I would rather that they realize this is how we see this aspect of the world. So
And there's a difference between a grass and a mountain. Like,
yeah, of course there is. But the idea is that something on the other side feels a lot easier and looks a lot more approachable than it's only when you get there that you realize it's not so green, right? So it's the same thing. When you look at a mountain from a distant distance, it feels easy to climb. It's only when you get closer you realize that it's not an easy mountain. So the idea behind that is the same. So I would rather retain these idioms, translate these idioms, than sort of just catch the meaning and look for an English
The English
equivalent.
equivalent, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
can I
Yes. There's some, we'll just go row by row, I guess. You are next or not? Okay.
Hello. First of all, congratulations for Heartland, and more importantly, to bring it to us, to the English-speaking English reading readers. My question is to Deepa ma'am, that while translating, we always said it's not the translation of words; it's a translation of emotions. Was there a particular difficult emotion or cultural nuance that you feared might get lost in translation?
So one of the first things I had to grapple with when I decided to translate these stories in Heartland was the cultural aspect, because Banu and I are not from the same community, and especially given where we are as a country, I was very, very clear that I didn't want to stereotype something, or I didn't want to flatten out some of these nuances. And I think getting to a stage where I was okay with picking up these stories and translating them took far longer than actually typing out the translation. So for me, it was a very immersive experience. I think I spent months and months reading similar books, reading books written by other women, Muslim women authors. Nothing to do with literature, literary sort of fiction, but generally, set in that community. And then I watched months and months of Urdu television dramas. I was listening to a lot of Sufi music. So Daisy Rockwell wonderfully calls it invisible force fields. Because when it comes to translation, you're not just looking at language to language. Language is everything. Language is our memory, it's our history, it's our social, it's food, it's song, it's music, it's so much. So, and when you translate a text, you are also translating these nuances. And the only way I could get as close as I possibly could to a culture so different from mine was by immersing myself in these other cultural aspects of the community.
Thank you.
Someone in the first row, yes.
Congratulations again. All morning we've been hearing the praises and everything, so it's great to be here and enjoy this in our country. So as she mentioned, we're all from Dubai, and my question is to Mr. Kanishka. We've been obviously looking always for the right agent, and I have written 2 books. One was self-published, like it was a combination, and the other one is published with Shrishti Publishers from Delhi. but we just wanted to also know the right path to get to the agent or the right publisher for us, and to keep growing this, because as everyone says that it's really obviously we should not lose this. We all four actually love to write, but we haven't found the right path sitting in Dubai, of course.
But who self-published the book? So you.
I self-published one book in Dubai.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously, I mean, if it's a self-published book and it hasn't become like a big seller,
Yeah.
it's going to be difficult for me to justify a republication by a bigger publisher. Normally, publishers take on self-published books if they become really big and if they start selling a lot. But otherwise, when it comes to fiction, non-fiction, any other genre, I mean, just go on the agent's website, look at the submission guideline. But before that, you may want to do some research on the agents, because unlike the UK and the US, in India, because of the paucity of the number of agents, I think there are like 6 or 7 who are very active. We are not specialists, but we do tend to work on certain genres despite being open to all genres. So do some homework, do some research, try to find out the kind of authors and books they worked on, and then just make a submission. If you're writing fiction, we would expect it's going to be difficult for us to offer representation unless we've read the full manuscript. But if it's a work of non-fiction, then sometimes, most of the times, we take it on the basis of a proposal and sample chapters. So I think just try your luck. Write to agents.
And what would be the time process like? Because I've also heard that sometimes we don't receive a reply. Just being honest.
But it's very clear on my website, like in some other agents' websites,
okay,
that if you don't hear back from us in 3 months, there's
no interest.
It's a no, because otherwise it'll be my full-time job to send rejection
replies.
notes.
Okay, but it's being seen, you mean?
Yeah, we look at the slush pile. Yeah, I started out as an agent specializing in debut fiction and debut writing in general, so that remains my first and foremost interest. That's my specialization. Yeah, but we rely on a lot of recommendations, from existing authors, or from
So it's easier for the process if we come through a recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for being honest. Thank you. Yeah.
Right.
I think one of the things also that I want to add as publisher and editor, I think patience for all of us, reading takes, time and space, and you have to give it that time and space. So as an editor, I want to give that manuscript submission time and effort and thought, and sort of wait and see whether I can do it. Am I the right person to do it? Is there someone else if I can't do it? So all of those, it's a mental process also.
Things have slowed down a bit, at least in terms of timelines, because if you look at the editors nowadays, they are multitasking, they are part of, they're preparing P&Ls, they're preparing marketing plans, they get involved in everything. They have last minute, they're requested by authors or their agents to pitch the books or the authors to the festival. So they are all over the place in a sense. So it's taken me a very long time to sell fiction, no matter how good it is, sometimes it takes me 6 months, 8 months, even 1.5 years. And I'm talking about fiction within India, to local publishers. UK, US is really, really difficult to sell anything. I think they are more favorably disposed to fiction than to non-fiction, because I think the non-fiction market in the UK, US is going through a bit of a difficult time, in terms of sales. So it's going to take time, and we have to sell to publishers. And if publishers are not responsive, or if publishers have said that we have acquired fiction, if I deal with 3 or 4 big publishers on a regular basis, all of them have no slots for fiction, so I'm going to slow down in my responses in sending representation agreements. So this is how it works. This is the whole chain.
But I think I can speak for Kanishka. I think the idea is to give time to authors and attention to the manuscripts that come our way. I think he wants to give that time and attention. It's not like he's just doing a lot, and so are we. But I think the intent is definitely to have to be able to be accessible. So that's definitely there. Yes.
Thank you.
The third row, fourth.
Hey, hi, I'm Bishwadip. I am a translation publisher from Calcutta. So, as the Deepa and Kanishka have been talking about even selling the books to the publisher, but I mean, one question that we grapple with, that is it required that also, I mean, we have been trying to develop the translation capability. Is it also required anyway to build a translation readership, or do you think it will automatically happen as we are talking more and more about translation? The translation readership, because we do feel as we are working on, obviously when a book like Heart Lamp gets noticed because of the awards, but there are other books which might not, and how do we get the readers more interested in translation?
This is not this is not like a marketing
No, I mean,
question at all. But
yeah.
what I've noticed, and I say this from experience of talking to friends and fellow writers, so there is very little readership overall for translations. And Heart Lamp or Tomb of Sand is very, very different, because something wins a big prize and everybody wants to read it and figure out why it won or why it shouldn't have won, or they have their reasons to read for reading the book. But I think, and in India there is this urgent need to decolonize our reading habits, because we're very happy to reach for books published by an author sitting in the UK or somewhere in Europe or the US. But when it comes to fiction written by Indian writers, somehow, unless of course it is Arundhati Roy, which is again a very different scenario. Nobody wants to pick up fiction. Nobody wants to pick up a translated work.
That's because of the ecosystem. We used to have some really good awards like JCB Prize, and before that DSC Prize, and DSC and Shakti Bhatt Prize for debut writing. And both DSC and Shakti Bhatt were open to writings from the subcontinent. They've discovered some world-class writers who've gone on.
But also, I don't know
so
if we are
also-
giving too much importance to just these prizes somewhere.
No, I'm just saying the
so
overall ecosystem that can promote literary
if
fiction.
you
or
look
create
at the
awareness.
magazine section of newspapers, you barely see reviews
Yeah,
of
and-
translations.
yeah,
You
yeah.
barely see reviews of Indian books by Indian
No,
writers,
so in
unless
that-
they're very big
No, but
names.
in that regard, I would say that even debut writers writing in English are suffering.
That's what I meant.
The books
So,
come and they vanish without a trace. Unless there is some UK US deal, and now even like some UK US deal, unless there are awards, it's not going to trickle down to. The effect is not going to trickle down to India.
never hear about these new books
I
half
think
the time.
discoverability is a problem. The fact that a lot of books are being published by so many publishers is a problem. Yes, there are certain magazines and newspapers that are considered like very good for like the coverage of literary fiction, but I think it's not making that much of an impact on the sales of the book as it used to. And of course, after COVID, a lot of things have moved online. Most of the things are behind, like most of the reviews, coverages are behind paywalls. Newspaper, they have shrunk, pages for literary reviews. So it has made an impact. But I think what we need is influencers, the right kind of influencers who can create awareness about, literary fiction, both in English and in translations that has not managed to travel to the UK and the US.
Even when you are talking about US, Kanishka, so my experience in US, I saw there are translation shelf, but that doesn't carry any of the translated books from India. Now, perhaps with the Booker Prize, but I'm talking about till 2022, I have seen. I was not able to find out any translated Indian novel or short story
That's
collections.
because books are not getting published in the UK, US. Every year, I think only 2 or 3 books from South Asia, which means South Asian languages, will include Sinhala, will include other languages. They are entered or they are published in the UK, of which maybe a fraction, or maybe 1 will get entered for the international bookers. So if the
Yeah.
books are not getting published in the UK, US, how will you find
No,
shelf space for them?
even I'll tell you, I once wanted to buy a book from Seagull, which I was told is available in the US, but I had to buy from the Chicago University Press.
Sure,
Yeah.
we share your angst here. I would like, as a publisher, I share your angst. We all do. We all want these books to be available there, and we want our literature to be out there. But
my initial question was little different. Not only about the shelf space, I was trying to understand. I mean, basically, this is a question we're also grappling with. Is there something that we need to do to develop even translation readers? Just like, because this.
Translation readers, in fact, now writers write in English increase. No, I think it's whoever likes to read literary fiction, they are not going to make a distinction between fiction writing in English and in translation. That's my opinion, and that's my experience, at least in India. And like I told you at the start, publishers are giving more importance to translated fiction. They are experimenting with genre. They are open to, like even commercial genres in translated fiction, short stories, poetry. It's all happening. We just need to find readers for both fiction in English and in translation. So it's not a bad scenario for translated fiction.
I'm very sorry, but we have run out of time, apparently. So we can't take any more questions, but feel free to approach Kanishka and Deepa after this session and ask your questions. Don't let them go without answering your questions. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. This was wonderful, and have a great experience at Jaipur and Bookmark.